Okay, hello, good morning, everybody. Louis, hey, good morning. How you doing? Okay, as always, guys, let's wait for everyone to join in. Just give it a couple of minutes. I'm setting up the Q&A, and I've got the chat feature open. So at any point in time, you can use the chat, and you can use the Q&A. Hey, Sally, how you doing? So just give it a couple of minutes. While we're waiting, hope you guys are well. It's getting cold, hey? Johannesburg's getting nice and fresh. And sorry, we're doing this, and we're getting Peter. Hey, how you doing? So it's getting closer to that time where on Thursday we in South Africa will find out kind of what the next step is on. Hey, Ida, what the next step is on our lockdown situation. So it's been interesting. Zoom has been good. This platform over here. Doing Tracy. Hey, Ada, morning. So yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. It has been. And on Thursday, we find out our fate. Hello, Marie. Hope you're doing well. So it's interesting. But we keep ourselves busy with webinars and such. Just again, for you guys, I'll talk about it a little bit more on the end. UK is beautiful. It's spring. Sounds amazing. On Wednesday next week, I am running a webinar. It's going to be the first one that we're looking at adding more value. So the idea is we're going to charge for it something like $20. It's a 2-hour webinar. And on top of all, we're going to go super deep on these things, right? But hey, Francois, but then there's also handouts and stuff at the end. So we're going to play with some of this so we can go deeper, because in these sessions like today as well, we're just going to scratch the surface like we do. So we're literally just going to scratch the surface, and then we're going to go roll deeper as time goes on. But I'll tell you all about that. Make sure to stay tuned on Instagram. But for now, okay, let's get rolling. I have coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning, South Africa. Good morning officially. We are going to look at noise reduction and sharpening in Lightroom, like we do in every session. 1 to 10. 10, I know exactly how sharpening and noise reduction works. 1 is, what the hell are you talking about? Go, please. I need a number. Just where do you put yourself? Just to give me an idea. I've got 7s, 8s, 6s, 3s, 5, 7, 5, 8. Okay. Pretty decent, actually. Pretty decent. Okay. So before we get into this, now, both of those are linked. You cannot separate them. And for those of you that used Photoshop in the old days, way back, even the initial versions of Lightroom, it was shocking. Photoshop used to be destructive. So i.e., you would have to sharpen right at the end of the process, because in the first, like Photoshop 1 and 2, you would do your processes, you would crop, you would do color adjustments and so on and so forth. And then you would get to a place where the final thing that you do is you sharpen, excuse me. So I'm still old school. I do it like that, but you don't have to anymore. To me, though, sharpening and noise reduction is kind of that final little polish before you put it out there. Now, just for the record, quickly, sorry, on the chat function, how many of you on your mobile devices use Snapseed? It is insane, right? It's from the same guys that does Nick. You want to go and check it out. If you're looking for processing power on your mobile device, go and check out Snapseed. It is stupid. It's a free app. It is ridiculous. So their sharpening is pretty good. And we're going to talk about what sharpening is now. And also, for those of you that work on Instagram sharpening filter is actually insanely good. It is really, really good. So if you are posting to Instagram, you would obviously sharpen for it in your processing like we're going to show you now. But don't dismiss Lightroom's, Instagram sharpening feature. It is insane. Really, really good. Okay, so let me quickly take you into Lightroom here for the first time for today. We are going here. These are, let me just get my chat on this page as well. Sweet. Okay, Marie, go and check it out. Snapseed is amazing. So these are the images we're going to look at today when it comes to sharpening. I've chosen each of them for a specific reason. And we're going to kind of look at that. But before we go there, the sharpening, let me just start with these guys. The sharpening and stuff that we're going to be looking at. Ooh, that's not the right zoom level, Gerry. Get that right. Go to fit. That's sweet. Okay, is basic panel we discussed yesterday. If you come down to details, in this detail panel, that is where you will find sharpening and noise reduction. Okay. So now, quickly before we go there, important thing to remember here is I've had people on Safari, right? And more than 100, where they would take a picture, boom. And then while they're still in the sighting, it would go and they would zoom in to 2,000,000%. And they will say, oh no, that's not sharp. That's not sharp. Let me give you the example. Keep the Q&As coming. France, I will do that as well. So keep the Q&As coming. Let me just take you back to Lightroom. So the problem is when you start doing that, right? And you start zooming in and you're looking for sharpness. Let's say you've got a shot like this. We saw this polar bear, right? This is when we finish going to be a great shot. However, if you're going to start doing this, zooming into this level, right? To this level, let me show you here. If I do this, so just for you to see, I'm now looking at that little square. You see, if you start judging sharpness at that level, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're going to be very, very disappointed with a lot of your images. We need to be real about sharpness and acceptable sharpness. Do not, just off the bat here, do not photograph something super wide with a small little elephant in the corner and decide to crop into that and then zoom in to see if it's sharp. Take an image for what it is. If you want to create a portrait, get close, do the portrait, and then crop a little bit in. Okay, I just find people overthink the sharpness thing dramatically. Some of my personal favorite images ever are not the sharpest ones I have, right? The world does not need sharper images. The world needs better images. So I'm going to just start with that. Okay, so let's start with sharpness first of all and discuss what it is. So I'm going to take you to Lightroom and we're going to go here away from that guy. We're going to crop this later to a workable image. If I go into, for example, let's use these guys, take them to develop. And I just want to set my zoom level 2:1 for now. Okay, so if I look at an image like this, let me just open the chat here so I can keep track of you guys. If I look at this, that's as shot, raw, untouched, right? Is that sharp enough? You might think, not sure. Let's have a look. Okay, so we go in. Now you start looking at this kind of level. Okay, looks pretty decent. Not the sharpest image, but what I want to use this for is an example to show you where sharpness is applied. Now, I want you to quickly, and I'm going to zoom deep in on this, right? You see this whisker here? Focus on sharpness. Claire will get there. Do me a favor, Claire, go pop that in the Q&A, please, and we'll get back to that later. So look at this whisker here. Okay, keep this whisker in mind. Now, sharpness is applied on the edges where two colored tones come together, i.e., if I have, for example, black, and this is my screen protector, which I still have to put on. If this is black and you have white, the place where they join, right? Sharpness is applied on those edges. So if you think of that whisker, let me show it to you again. If you think of this whisker, right? Sharpness will be applied where the tawny color of the line, there's a bit of black in there, meets the white. That is where sharpness is applied. Okay, so where you have those two tones coming together, it's a line of pixels where black and white or green and blue, whatever meets. Okay, that's where sharpness is applied. So when you apply sharpness, what your program does is it adds a pixel on either side to make that line and the connection where they join look more pronounced. Okay, so if you imagine a row of pixels like that, this is white, that is black, yes? What Lightroom, in this case, or Photoshop then would do is it would add another layer of pixels on the one side, and on the other color, same thing, another layer. So then instead of a 1 pixel sharpness, it now starts getting bigger. So it looks sharper. Let's go into Lightroom, watch this. So, and we'll discuss these in a second. Just watch this whisker here for me, right? If I increase that, okay, that looks horrible. It looks like a comic. But see now how pronounced this whisker is. The little black edges that there was is now much bigger and thicker. Watch again. That's raw. Okay, I'll discuss these sliders in a second. If I take this all the way up, I take radius up. I might as well do mask. That's one as well. Can you now see how pronounced that thing is? The image looks shit, make no mistake. But that is what sharpness does. And this is important. All right. Just a quick yes or no for me in the chat. Do we get that? That is what? Hi. Okay. So that is what sharpness does. Sharpness applies along the edges. It's along the edges. Okay. This is going to become increasingly important when we start talking about noise reduction, because noise is actually a bunch of edges. You need to think about that. Okay, so to sharpen in Lightroom, let me go back and we're going to look at each of these sliders quickly individually. Now, see the thing here, zoomed in to what level am I zoomed in here? 4:1, right? This looks dodgy. It's like, what the hell are you doing? That level, could play, but I'm going to give you some tips right now as to how I find the easiest way to sharpen using all of this. So I'm going to reset all of my sharpness, and we're going to discuss these 4 sliders on their own. Now, the first thing that I do when I get to sharpness is I come to this block here, right? This is my little loop. So I can now go and say, right, see where I tick my cursor, it shows me that area sharpness level. Okay, so here I prefer to keep it at 2:1. Okay, so it's quite deep. So if I take my cursor over, it goes quite deep into there. There's my whiskers from earlier on. All right, we got that. Sorry, let me just open the chat here so I can keep in touch with you guys as we go. Okay. Don't know what to say or how to be me. No, just you can say whatever. It's all good. Okay, so then what I want to do here is I'm going to do the same thing here at 2:1. All right, my reasoning is the following. I am going to sharpen the image at 2:1, which is deep, because I can then see the result better. Make sense? I'm going to sharpen at 2:1, zoomed in, because I can see it better. At 1:1, I judge it. I judge the sharpness at 1:1, and then I go back to presenting the image. Because remember this now. There it is. Okay, so if on this one, so remember I've set 2:1. So when I zoom in, it's going to go to 2:1. So I will sharpen at this level. Yeah. I will then judge the sharpness at 1:1 ratio, and then I will present my final image. Because people zoom into this and they say, oh, but this is not sharp. Yes, John, you're not going to show me this. This is a part of the process. So here is where I do the sharpening work because I can see it better. I judge my sharpness at 1:1, yeah? And then I present my final image. Okay, so here's the step. So I've set this up here, my little loop, as 2:1. So when I click in, it'll go to 2:1. And what I do now is I'll just leave it at an area which gives me somewhere like there. Okay, now the sharpening sliders, what these do. Number 1, amount. Amount is like the volume of sharpening, right? It's like turn up the volume, make it more, make it louder, if that makes sense. Okay, we just open that up again. There we go. So it's like the volume of sharpening. Radius is an important one. Now you'll see here it says 1 next to it. Okay, what that means, remember where the 2 pixels come together? It's going to add 1 pixel on either side. So it's kind of a standard, right? These are the standard settings in Lightroom. Detail does the same thing, and it enhances the pixels that you've done even more. So it just increases that, but on a finer level. So if I could, and if we could, I would change this detail to fur, like, or hair, right? Beautiful for that. And then masking is the first thing we're going to start with. So amount is like the volume. Radius is how many pixels gets added next to every line of sharpness. Detail is the finer version of that, and masking. So we are going to start at masking. Quick one for me, 1 to 10. 10 being I've got this 1, what the hell. How many of you use and understand the masking slider in Lightroom when it comes to sharpening? Okay, I've got everything from 0s to 1s to 3s, not used yet, 4. Okay, there's a little bit of everything. Dig it. Okay, now the reason why this is super important is the following. On an image like this, I want to sharpen the edges, not necessarily the smooth areas like here up in the back. Yeah, makes sense. So I want to sharpen the detailed areas that's in focus versus not the sharp areas. As it is now, these three sliders, the top three, will affect the entire image the same way, 100% the same way. Okay, we don't want that because, let me show you why. If I were to zoom in at the back here, right, and I can go really deep in there, just watch for a second. So now I'm going really tight into there. This is the background. Can you see this is noise, right? If I sharpen, this will also to a degree be sharpened because Lightroom doesn't know this is noise. Lightroom just thinks it's an edge. Lightroom thinks it's the same as this fur. All right. So that is why the masking feature is such an important thing in Lightroom and why you should start there. Okay, here's the thoughts. You go to the full image, you've cropped, you've done everything else at this stage, right, for me. Then you start with masking. Now, stay with me here. What's going to happen? I'm going to click Option on my keyboard, and I'm going to hold that slider, right? So I'm holding Option in, and I hold the slider. Everything that is white on the screen now will be sharpened, i.e. the lion, the background, his teeth, her feet, everything. Right, so I click on masking and I hold Option. Now, I'm going to slowly now take the slider while holding Option key slowly to the right, right? And what Lightroom's masking does then is it goes for stronger and stronger and stronger edges as you get more to the middle. So as I move this slider now, the stuff that is white is the stuff that will be sharpened, and stuff is a technical term. So the edges will stay white. Watch this. I hold Option, I hold masking. I slowly go up. Watch what happens. I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going. If I stop there, everything that is white will be sharpened. Everything that is black will not be sharpened. So you can see that background in the top left, top right. Now I'm not sharpening any of that. It's going to stay nice and smooth, right? I'm going to go more, all the way up. So for an image like this, I could do that. So you can now see the areas that I want to sharpen. It's only the important parts, right? Just give me a quick yes. What is Option on a Mac? Sally, it's the one bottom left, 1, 2, 3 from the corner, if that makes sense. Everybody happy with that, the masking, how it works? I'm going to do it on every single image that we're going to work on. Okay, it's very important, especially when you get to low light, high noise images. Okay, so because I've now done this, yeah, I can theoretically be a bit more aggressive with my sharpening because it's applied only to the correct places. That makes sense? Yeah? So, one more time, hold there, Option or Alt, all the way up, 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 and you decide how much. If there was detail I want to preserve in the background, I would stop there because then this stuff here, watch again, top left will also be sharpened, but we don't want that, right? Just somewhere there, I would go with it. Okay, now, at this stage, I know where I'm going to be sharpening. I will then zoom into an area like the nose here, where I've got a couple of things. I need white edges, I need some dark, and I need some fur in this instance, right? So I'll go into this. And at that point, I'm going to be sharpening. Now, you could either just use the slider and visually judge. So you can do the same. So watch, you can actually see the difference. You guys can see that, yeah? All right. And then if I do that, I kind of like that. I'm going to show you another way now. Radius will increase the amount of pixels around every edge that you find where two tones come together. So I've sharpened at 2:1. You can see at the top here. I can then judge my work at 1:1. Now the cool button here, if you didn't know this, next to detail, you've got this little button where you can turn it on and off. Okay. So I don't know how, can you guys look at this fur and the texture around these whiskers here? So that's with sharpening, that's without. With sharpening, without. So again, sharpen at 2:1, judge 1:1, and then pull back, and there's my final image. There is still things like export sharpening specifically for print and for Instagram, whole different story. We're just sticking to Lightroom for now. Okay, so let us run a different image. I'm going to go back here. Let's go for this one. Now, there's a couple of reasons I've chosen this. First of all, let me crop that. Kenton, hey, how you doing? Okay, let me do this. Let's just crop this for shits and giggles. I'm going to go 4x5. There, like that. Done. All right. Now, the reason that I've chosen this one is because it's a pretty high ISO. This is a 1600 ISO. We'll talk about noise in a second. But this is the unedited raw file. If I zoom in, okay, pretty decent. Yeah. Now, watch if I go deeper into this area here. Let's choose the area over here where there's a fly, the whiskers and the background. If I go deeper into that, can you guys see this? The noise that is coming through here. So watch this. And this is 2:1, yeah? 2:1. If I go and I push the amount up, can you see that the noise also gets affected? If I start doing radius, which we have to increase the contrast around the edges of the edges, look what happens to the noise. Okay, these two things are linked. Noise and sharpness are linked. And we're going to look at noise now, and then we'll start playing that balance game. Okay, it's a very, very fine balance sometimes, but it's important. So let's go sharpen this girl from the start. I'm going to reset all my sharpness, and we'll do it like we did. Remember, I didn't do any basic adjustments on this. We're just going straight in and just to sharpen. So I'll choose an area there, which is 2:1. All right. So I'm choosing this area. Why? Because I've got some white areas, I've got smooth areas, and I've got dark. I've got all the tones here. So I know what I'm working with. The first thing is we mask. Done there. Slowly up. So can you see now? Look at the background, all the white speckles in the background. That is noise. Lightroom is seeing those as edges. So if I sharpen at this level, you are sharpening noise. Got it? So I'm going to keep going. Look at that. So if I sharpen that now, only the white areas will be sharpened. And those are the areas that I want to sharpen. The black background will not be sharpened. Got it? That's a good thing. Okay, so I've masked first. Then I go to this area which we chose earlier on. We're going to work in this kind of range here because I've got all of the different areas. Okay, now I'm going to show you the next thing here. When you hold Option or Alt in this case, watch what happens when I hold the amount slider. It turns it to monochrome. Right. Sharpening is better visualized at monochrome level than with color. Color confuses it for us. So when you hold Option or Alt and you drag that amount slider up, it makes it monochrome and you can see it better. Watch again. Watch again. So let's go deep in here. We're in there. Okay, I've chosen my area and I'm now going to hold Option, get the amount slider. So I'm just going to whack it up and down. Can you see it's much easier to see the difference in monochrome? So I'm going to go up. So I'm watching particularly this fur, the smooth area, and this here. So for me, I'm kind of there-ish, right? Hold there. Okay, so I just go quickly before and after. Before and after. Can you see the difference? Remember, this turns noise reduction off as well. So that's before noise reduction and sharpening. That's after. Before and after. We'll get there now. Okay. I'm not changing it. No. Tracy, good question. I'm not physically changing it to monochrome. Holding Option and grabbing the slider just visualizes it in monochrome because the sharpening is applied to monochromatic values, tonal values. So it's just easier to see, if that makes sense. Okay, next one, the radius. Now, if you do the same thing with radius, you hold Option and you hold the radius key. Can you see how it makes it again monochrome? I'm not going to whack this thing up. For those of you that did the basic panel with me, all the way up. Right. Can you see how it almost becomes a black and white? Now just keep this in mind. Look at the screen and keep this in mind. Got it? Okay. What I'm going to do at this stage, you can see in that image, and I'll go back there now, there's pure black and pure white. I'm now going to, while I'm holding Option, slide that slider down until I don't have pure black and white, until it's just monochrome. It's a different type of visualization, but it becomes easier the more you do it. Hold the Option key, whack it up to the top. There's black and white in there, pure black and white. You're going to slowly back it up until it's not black and white, and you just got the monochrome. Watch. Here we go. I'm seeing your questions, guys. We'll get there. Okay. So again, I take the radius. I hold Option. I whack it up. Now, look around the teeth area, there's black and white. I'm going to now slowly back this up until the harsh black and white disappears and it becomes a softer monochrome, somewhere like there. Okay, see the difference there and there. I want you to watch this area here around the front tooth. Yeah, between that, see how there's a strong black edge versus more soft. Okay, you're going to find this number here. Normally, Lightroom gives us 1 to start with. You should end very close to this, but there's no rule. Don't worry about the numbers, right? Don't worry about the numbers. Look at it visually. So let's turn our sharpening on and off again. That's off and on, off and on. We're working. Now, detail. The detail does what radius does, but at a much finer level. So if there's fur, like this kind of stuff here, for example, it punches it beautifully, right? So you can go look for an area like that. And the same thing, when you hold option and you click on detail, it again does it in monochrome. Now this time it flips around. This time you're going to start from monochrome and you're going to take that slider slowly up, holding option until you can see stronger contrast, i.e. almost black and almost white in that monochrome visualization. Please tell me that's making sense. Just a yes or a thumbs up or something. So far, so good. Yes. All right. We'll do more of this. Brendan, hey mate, how's it going? Amy, hello. All right. So deep in we go again, straight into Lightroom over there. Okay. So we've done the top two. Detail. I'm going to now hold option. I'm going to hold detail. I'm going to whack it up all the way just for you to see. Okay. Can you see there's not much happening there? Why not? Because there's not enough contrast here. So then we come to a place with more contrast, i.e. very strong lines. Yeah. And then we go there. As I take it up, watch how it increases this time. See how it becomes more pronounced? Forget about the noise. We'll get there in a second. More pronounced, less pronounced. So on this detail one, you hold our option and you go up until you get stronger contrast, maybe somewhere there. I'm specifically paying attention to this whisker here. Got it? All right, done. Now, once I've done this, remember I sharpen a 2 to 1. I then change my view to 1 to 1. And now at this level, I'm judging sharpness. So I will then turn it on and off, without and with. Look at this area here in particular. I see the questions coming in, guys. We'll get there. Look at this area here in particular, without and with, without and with. We could probably even look at the ear area here, without and with. I hope you guys can see this online. I hope the internet's showing you the right thing. All right, but it sharpens it up and then I present. So that's where I judge and that's where I present. Sharpen a 2 to 1, judge your sharpening at 1 to 1, and then present the final image. Okay, so now we'll quickly go down here. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to sharpening in a bit, right? Because depending on how many sharp edges, you would obviously mask, and I hope this makes sense, you would mask an image more if there's a lot of fur and textures, a lot more. If it's a big open landscape like that polar bear with smooth skies and smooth snow where there's no detail, you wouldn't have to mask as much. Okay, because there's not backgrounds that you want to smoothen out, but we'll get to that. Now, noise. There are 2 types of noise: monochromatic, luminance, and color. Right, now luminance, the monochromatic stuff. The graininess that you see, and I'll show you some noise now, that is the luminance stuff. It's bad, right? We don't like that. Color noise is RGB. That's red, green, and blue pixels that kind of push us through. So watch the noise reduction. Let me go. And this image was shot, I think, at 1600 ISO, right? So hold the sharpening thought on this and let's go quite deep in. Okay, we're super deep in now here. Just find a nice area. I need some dark in it. Where are we picking an area? Let's go, let's stick on the mouth. Okay, so if I look at this, right? Here, luminance is grain, making this as simple as possible. Do you see around here? And if I zoom even deeper into this background, the graininess you see here is noise. Okay, we can talk about where noise comes from later if it's a question, pop it in there. But this is noise, right? To get rid of this stuff, and remember, I'm zoomed into this background area here now. To get rid of this noise, the luminance slider will smooth that out. Watch when I take this up, I'm gonna just whack it up to the top. Beautiful smooth. 50-50, none. See what happens? So the luminance slider takes away the graininess of an image. But Lightroom doesn't know if it's noise or if it's texture. Watch what happens here. Watch what happens here. We are still in this level, okay? I'm gonna zero this. Let's now choose an area where there's some texture, right? Let's go on the nose area here. Okay, that's super deep in, right? Remember, this is 1600 ISO. Let me back this up a touch. Okay, so we're there. Okay, we've got a couple of whiskers here. Now, okay, this will work. Okay, here. If I now am aggressive on my noise reduction, watch what happens to my image. I'm gonna whack it up all the way. Can you see what's happening? Isn't that a song? Can you see what's happening? You whack it up all the way, and it starts looking like your cat now has Vaseline on it. Because this texture, which is fur, Lightroom does not know. Lightroom thinks this is noise. So you need to find a very nice balance when you do this of removing noise from the background versus compromising texture on an image. This is important. If you're shooting portraits close up and you're doing noise reduction, if you go too heavy on noise reduction, you are compromising sharpness in the fine furry details of that image. Very important. Also, you should be thinking now, if I have an image with big open landscapes, blue skies, smooth blue skies, beautiful flat white snow and one polar bear, right? You should be able to go more on noise reduction. Yeah? Because the detail on that small animal isn't as important as the big. So you have to take this on a per case basis. So when we do this, going back into Lightroom, okay, let's zero that one. So we're going to do this with more images as well. So let's say now I'm here, for example, right? I'm going to use this because this has been my yardstick kind of thing. If I now, this is sharpened to the point where I want, now I'm going to reduce noise. I'm going to take this up slowly, and I'm looking for a balance of smoothness in the background versus not losing too much detail in the fur or on the edges. Here we go. If I do it all the way, just let me remind you, you get that. Background's beautiful. Cat is all like oiled up, right? So it's a slow process. You go up, 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 have a look and see. For me, that becomes acceptable somewhere here. Right, so again, see from there to there, I will go up until the background starts smoothing out and I still have some texture here. The number for me doesn't matter. People get very carried away with this number. It doesn't matter because no one's going to look at your image and say, holy shit, Jennifer, that's a beautiful image. Wow, you must have had 45 on your luminance slider in noise. Nobody cares. They look at the image on final quality, right? So let's go back in here, into there, and have a look. Okay, so that is the luminance slider. We're going to do another one. I'm using this image just as an example. I'm going to take that back to normal, and I'm going to come back. Let me give you, okay, we'll stay here. We'll stay here. This is an interesting one. I'm going to go deeper a bit here so you can see the difference. We're super deep in now, right? Color noise reduction. Forget about detail and contrast and detail smoothness. That's more advanced. We'll do that in the next webinar, right? Luminance and color. Those are the two you have to worry yourself about. Let me just quickly open the chat and see if there's anything interesting there. Can you apply a mask for noise reduction? Okay. Capuchin, do me a favor. Please ask that in the Q&A as well, and I'll go join that afterwards. So by default, your Lightroom will give you 25 on color noise reduction. Now I want you to pay close attention for me on the area here. So this green, this dark, and here. If I take this down, can you guys should be able to see that. Just tell me you can see that horrible color noise coming back everywhere, right? You see that? Lightroom takes that away for us by default. Okay, so you wouldn't have to do more of this. Not unless you have an import setting that zeroes all of this. Your color noise should be fine, even up to very, very, very high levels, right? So that's horrible. Now, if you, and this is the catch, if you overdo the luminance slider, you are affecting sharpness of the image. If you overdo color noise, your colors start bleeding into each other. So if you have, for example, Friddle, not sure. So if you, for example, have, let's say, a lion, which is a tawny color with blood on its mouth and a green bush behind it, and those colors are close together. If you start overdoing the color noise slider, those colors at deep level will start blending together. Now, this will become a problem if people zoom into your images or if you try to print them. So the color noise reduction, I didn't follow that, is not as important for you because Lightroom does it for you. Don't go mess with it. Okay, don't mess with it. So let's go in here, but it's important to know, let's go and do an image of Dixon. All right, so this, let's just confirm here, this was shot at ISO 3200. So if I'm going to sharpen and noise reduce this thing, we are expecting a lot of noise. So I'm going to go into this area here because that gives me some brightness, some dark, and some midtones, right? Okay, but sorry, I still need to be on 2:1 over there. Okay, Dixon does that because the fire is hot. He normally smiles. All right. So first thing we're going to do is sharpen. So masking has to be at that level, right? Mask, option, whack it up until I'm left with the area that I want to sharpen. And it should make sense to you guys that I'll probably stop there somewhere. Yeah, background's nice and smooth, and the face is sharpened and some of the other external details as well. From there, I would go in again to here. I would say amount. I will hold option because I can see it better, remember? I can see it better in monochrome. It doesn't change it to monochrome. Slowly up. I'm just looking at his face. I'm happy there somewhere. Radius, hold. I whack this all the way up, and then I bring it back until, so watch the teeth. Just below the teeth, there's that black. And I'll come down until it's just not black anymore. Somewhere there. Maybe even less there. Right? See, 1.2. It's close to what I had originally. Detail. There's not much fur in here, but I mean, I could probably argue some texture in the back. But let's do it. Let's do it. So I'll hold Alt again, option there, and I'll go slowly up until I start seeing black and white. So you see, for this one, not much, because there's not much furry detail in this. I'm going to leave that on basic. Okay, so now I'm going to turn, just in for this level here, I'm going to turn noise reduction, which is already 25 on color, and sharpening off by doing that. In the background, you can see some color coming there. Okay. And then also, I don't know, I hope you guys can see on the face. I'll go in for you in a second. All right, but we're going to keep going for now. Luminous noise reduction. So which area would we use for that? We need some dark, some light, some background. So that area here comes to mind. This area here comes to mind to me because I've got some details. I've got some dark, there's some light. So I might do it here. However, the most important thing for me here is this blue needs to be smooth. So that's why let's stick there. I hope that makes sense. I am quickly opening here. Okay. 1024, that's fine. I will now take the luminance slider up and I'm watching sharpness on the face. And I'm going to talk about the sharpness on the face in a second. Yeah. But I'm looking at if I do that, see the background is beautiful, but Dixon looks like he's wearing a face mask. Yeah. So I'll back that up until I see some texture on him. There we go. At that level there. And the background for me is a bit smoother. Okay. Color noise reduction. Let's just see what it would have been because Lightroom's done it already. Look at how horrible that is. So thank you, Lightroom, for taking that away. You guys can see that background, yeah? You can see the background. It goes horrible with that. So now I'm already hearing some of you. Remember, this here is 2:1. This is where we work because we can see the detail that we're doing. I will judge it at 1:1. So overall, for a 3200 ISO, I'm happy with this, that the background's quite smooth. I'm happy with the detail because I'm not going to present it like this. I'm presenting it there. Sharpen at 2:1, judge your sharpness at 1:1, and present your final image as the full version. Right, Tracy's question here quickly. So no real need to touch the color slider, this one here, because Lightroom does it. Yes, just double check. You can set Lightroom that it doesn't, but 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's already there. So that is, in a very short nutshell, sharpening in Lightroom. Okay, I'm going to quickly run to the Q&As now. The comment section is still open, so if you have anything there, but let's go to Q&A and let me see what you guys have here. We might jump back into Lightroom as and when needed. Franz, when you have time, please let me know where I can find the seminars that I missed. That's a good question. Okay, as of later this week, we are going to be uploading all these free seminars that we're doing to the Wild Eye Instagrams, TV, IGTV, excuse me, and to YouTube. So check both of those, and then we'll share it out on our feeds as well. How do you differentiate focus from sharpness? Very deep question, actually. So sharpness would be critical sharpness. If you take a picture of me and my hair, right, and there's one area that is 100% sharp, but the rest of it is out of focus, that could be a depth of field thing. It could be a depth of field thing. If, however, you take a picture of me, but Yoda back here, where's he? Yoda is sharp. There is still sharpness in the image. It's just your focus point is on the wrong place. So if there is some type of sharpness somewhere in the image, there's sharpness, right? Out of focus would mean that there was nothing in focus. It's a fine line. It's a fine line. But sharpness has to be on the place that you want to draw my eye to. The human eye, visual mass, is attracted to sharpness. So Claire, if that doesn't make sense, give me a shout and we can go deeper on that. Ida, just one of the difference between using masking and the brush to localize my sharpening. Okay, good question. Localized sharpening, I'm covering in tomorrow evening's adjustment brush. You can do localized sharpening, very much so, but brush webinar tomorrow, and I'll show you how to do that. I would do masking on every single image that you sharpen, all of them, and then as needed, add the adjustment brush on top. Okay, Louis, if you compare the amount of sharpening in the detail panel with the amount of sharpening in the adjustment brush, is 20 in the detail panel the same amount as 20 in the brush? Great question. Great question. Yes, as long as your flow and density on the brush is set to maximum. Make sense? Yeah. So as long as your flow and density sliders is set to maximum, the numbers are the same. Louis, yes. If that doesn't make sense, guys, webinar tomorrow night on the adjustment brush. But yes, it's a 1-for-1 ratio if flow and density are set to a maximum. Your comments. Some guys say set radius to 0.5 and then details to 100. Again, you ask 5 people their opinion, you're going to get 15 different answers. I don't like to work according to numbers because our focus becomes what the numbers should be versus what the visual is. So I would rather look at the visual. I don't care if my 0.5 is 2.5, which is a dramatic sharpness. Yeah, but if it works, it works. Right, Brendan. Okay, it's slightly off topic, but related to sharpness. Photographers often obsess over sharpness and noise, as you mentioned before. However, a non-photographer usually doesn't take notice of those things. What do you think viewers of an image notice the most when seeing an image they like? I think it's good to work backwards from what makes a pleasing image. You mentioned some of your favorite images weren't sharp. Hope that makes sense, 100%. So I'm going to answer this if you guys are happy to go over just a little bit. When you, for example, right? When you, for example, enter a competition, there's 2 things. I'm sure you guys know my thoughts on competition. That's a very different thing for photography. The first thing you do is you sit down and you take, for example, your 10 competition entries. You pick a photographer whose work you admire and whose opinion you admire. Let's say you email me, Brendan, and say, listen, please crit these 10 images. I will then crit it technically from a sharpness and a noise reduction point of view, and composition and color balance and all those things. That's the one side of it. The most important side then happens after that is take your laptop, go into a coffee shop and go to someone you don't know. There's an old lady sitting on her own. Hey, sorry, ma'am, you don't know me. No, my name is Brendan. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? And I would just like you to look through my images. I want to show you some of my work. Bear with me, right? You then set it up for her and say to her, you can use the arrow to go through my images. You don't watch the images, you watch her face. This sounds very schwal. Bear with me for a second. Because a photograph needs to wow. A photograph needs to have impact. A photograph needs to make you feel something. Yes? I thought winning. Yes. Competition for me is also winning. So when that lady who you've now bought coffee for, is going through images. Look at her face. Is it blank? Or is it like, ooh, oh, wow. Is there something? If that photograph elicits emotion or something from your viewer, right? Something from your viewer, then it doesn't matter. Then sharpness doesn't matter. Then composition doesn't matter at the end of the day. It depends who you're speaking to as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to do an exhibition where you're pitching in against photographers and say, listen, then we need to have 100% sharpness and stuff. Brendan, I hope this makes sense. But for me, the final is, what does that image make someone feel and think and evoke? If there's a bit of sharpness lacking, like some of my favorite images ever are not sharp. I mean, I can actually show you something. Hang on, this is the first, right there. This image, right? Some of you might have seen that. It's a big canvas, right? That image is so unsharp and even a little bit out of focus. One of my favorites. So I would look at how people react to your work, Brendan. We could do a whole podcast on that. All right, moving on. Charlotte says, are grain and noise separate things? So noise in an image is made up of grain and color noise. It's luminance and color noise. So grain is noise and noise consists of grain. Yeah? Okay, Brendan, another one. Second question. Is there a way to use the noise reduction and luminance with the adjustment brush? It would be good to be able to spot, adjust noise and luminance. Answer is yes, 100%. The cool thing, and join the tomorrow evening's adjustment brush, a little bit technical, but super helpful, I think. You can do one brush, which as you brush over certain areas, both noise reduces and sharpens at the same time. So yes, you can. Ida, is there a way to focus the luminance in on one specific area with the brush? Yes, we'll do that tomorrow night. Where do you do your sharpening and noise reduction, in Lightroom or Nick? Says Louis. Louis, I do most of it in Lightroom, but if I have a specific reason to, for example, I'm going to publish it and they have a certain requirement, or I'm printing it big like this canvas over here, then I would use Define, which is Nick's noise reduction filter. It is ridiculously amazing. So mostly Lightroom, sometimes Nick. In next week, Wednesday's webinar, where I'm going to go for, it's a 2-hour thing. I am going to go through the whole process, and then I'm going to use Define, because Define as a noise reduction filter is ridiculous. For those that are interested, you can then noise reduce per color channel. You can say, only reduce the noise in this color behind me, not on the black or there. So mostly Lightroom, sometimes Nick. France says, buy a donkey, only a plaisir. It's not a plaisir. Chris, can you remind us of date and time, what's coming up, please? Yes. So for the rest of this week, tomorrow night, I am doing, at 2 o'clock today, Michael is doing rating your images in Lightroom and how to kind of use survey mode. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock South African time, I think it's 6 o'clock, I must just check. I'll put it on my story later today and the Wild Eye story. I'm doing the adjustment brush. And then on Friday evening, 7 o'clock, Andrew Dankwitz is doing a thing on graduated filters and radial filters. But Chris, I'll post it on Instagram on the Wild Eye feed as well. Andrew Ackerman, does Photoshop have better sharpening tools than Lightroom? Andrew, great question. Not necessarily better, but the masking function there is way stronger. So I can then over sharpen my top layer if you were there for that, and then I just fade it out until I get to a happy place. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Suggestion would be to use them in combination. One of the other webinars I want to do next week, I'm still playing with the idea, is to just do Lightroom to Photoshop to Lightroom. Just call it that, and how you can bounce images. But Lightroom should be sufficient for 90% of the time. Other times you could use Photoshop or the Nick filters. Will you post a link to the brush webinar again, please? Yes, I will put that on the Wild Eye SA feed in the next hour and a half, as soon as this is done. We are still working on a page with all of them, but it's changing so quick and there's some cool stuff coming up. So we'll get there. Just stay tuned to the Wild Eye Instagram, best place for now. Last one here. Can you apply a mask for noise reduction, just like the one that was applied for sharpening? You can. Visually, it's important though. So I would do my sharpening. I would do in monochrome by holding Option. Luminance I want to see because it affects different areas. So if you want to start masking your noise reduction, look at Nick Filters, define the filter because it does beautiful things. It's amazing. But we will look at that in next week's one as well. Right. Guys, I think that is it for now. Again, this is not a course. This is not a course. On a course or a one-on-one, we go way deeper. And then we look at details and images and stuff like this. This is just to give you some ideas to play with and some food for thought and stuff. So if you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram. You've got my username there, gerry@wildeye.co.za. Send me an email. And then I will, in the next hour and a half, I will post if you haven't signed up for the brush seminar tomorrow night yet, I'm going to show you some magic with that thing. It's absolutely incredible what you can do. And I'll refer to the details we discussed here in there as well with regards to noise reduction localized. So that is it. Guys, wherever in the world you are, thank you for joining. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I will chat to you guys in the next episode. Stay safe. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.